Yes, a new one from Nicki Minaj there. A little bit different from her usual stuff. That one's called Pre-Cum. And now, the new hit single from Justin Bieber. Well, some biting satire there. Lovely. It's a bit weird, but fair enough. Time again. And return guest, former host of Strange Times, former host of the Kimchi Chronicles, former host of Punny You Should Say That. It's Sam Pett. Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you again. Way too long.
Yeah, I feel like I should call you Spam Pet almost, because in the last episode you were on, the one thing that sticks in my head is the little story we chatted about South Koreans giving each other gift box sets of Spam for Lunar New Year.
That was also my nickname at school, so I'm totally good with that.
Well, there you go. There's something worth investigating right off the bat. Why were you called Spam? Is it just the closeness of the name, or did you have some sort of affinity to processed ham?
No, it was literally Sam Spam. And then there was this one kid picked up on my surname being Pet.
Right.
And I was called Trumpet.
Oh, right. What about Crumpet?
They didn't do that.
Oh, God. This is where you need a time machine, isn't it?
How about you? Have you nicknames?
Stupid Fuckland would be the first one to come off the... It's pretty close to my name, Stuart Buckland. You know, you got to pay it. What can you do? It's pretty close. I'm going to ask you a couple of things about where you are, but I did hear your cat in the background then.
Every freaking time the studio pussy has to get involved.
Well, we did talk about your cat a fair bit last time. I don't know if you remember. It was because we were talking, you brought us a story about the Egyptians revering cats and how the Persians used that against them in war.
Yeah.
And at that time, you had recorded your cat who, for some reason, had started... I'll call it a meow, but it wasn't really a meow, was it? It was like some sort of gurgle from hell. So is your cat still possessed, I guess, is my first question.
He's even worse these days, dude. I think he's got Alzheimer's. He hates the dog.
Right.
He will launch himself at the dog on full attack mode.
But what are you saying? That he forgets each morning that the dog's there and gets surprised? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we've got this system where we have to separate them. He was too quick and he just launched himself at the dog. And I tried to intercept it. And he grabbed my foot with his teeth and all four claws. And
Right.
as I tried to get out of the living room, he was attached to my foot. So I ended up at the emergency room getting patched up and a tetanus shot.
Oh, that bad.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Oh, so possibly still possessed then.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right, we'll tick that. So we've talked spam, we've talked demon cats. I'm just re-going over things we talked about in the last episode. Let's talk about some new gear. Weird law. I like to start with the weird law.
Mhm.
Did you know that not taking your dog for a walk 3 times a day is a crime in Turin, Italy? 3 times a day.
Wow. I've had heard something 3 times a day. Sorry, I love my pup, Mija. Her name's Mija. Oh, Mija. 3 times a day, that's pushing it.
Well, how would you? Like, don't these people work?
Right. Oh, hang on. Just random. But in Italy, don't they get, like, like Southern Europe countries, they get a 2-hour lunch break
Right.
because of the siesta?
Yeah, I thought that was just, yeah. But by the sounds of it, you're forced to walk your dog in that.
Which is the worst time, right? That's the whole point of not being outside at that time of day. Good point.
I looked into this a little bit. I saw nothing that said, often if I look up a law, there'll be something that says, no, this is a stupid myth, forget about it. But everything I read suggested it was real. So, and I don't bring any fake laws here. I've fact-checked myself to some small degree, at least.
No fake news to be found here.
So it says here that if you own a dog in Turin of, shroud fame, the law requires you to walk it outside at least 3 times a day. If you don't, you could get a fine of up to 500 euros under a new law from the city council. It says Italy considers itself an animal-loving nation, and in many cities, stray cats are protected by law. So I don't know what that means. You can't kick a stray cat up the arse. I don't think you can do that anywhere. I don't think that deserves a special mention. But still, some 150,000 pet dogs and 200,000 cats are abandoned in Italy every year, according to animal rights groups.
Wowzers.
I don't want to appear unkind here, but it feels to me that perhaps some of these abandoned dogs might be because people don't have time to walk them 3 bloody times a day.
Right. And I'm always curious, like, if you've got a big yard, if you can let your dog out into the yard several times a day, does that not constitute enough exercise?
I have not looked up average yard size in Turin, unfortunately. But
Why?
look, I did say I fact checked myself, but some investigative journalism wouldn't have gone astray either, really. But look, I don't know if this is a shock to anyone, but I don't have a dog and don't particularly like dogs. So
interview, but we're done.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say interview switch and you'll just grill me for 10 minutes on dogs and what's wrong with them. Look, I can answer that myself. And no, actually, should I? I don't want to upset you.
No.
I think they're smelly. I think they're stupid. And yeah, often hard work.
Mija, are you listening? Yeah, she's looked at you just like,
Whereas cats, I appreciate their haughtiness. I appreciate their completely unjustified superiority that they feel. And I don't know, maybe I relate to it in some way. But I've never had a desire to have a dog and can't see that changing. They just feel like too much. It's too much.
Yeah, that's not right. Weird.
And what's your and your case for the defense is?
I agree with the cat. Despite his Alzheimer's and being a grumpy bastard, he's got great personality and he's very easy. The dog, I've always, because I love all animals. I've got 2 lizards as well.
Oh, yeah. Look, don't get me wrong. I don't dislike dogs. I just don't want them in my face, ever. I think it was reinforced for me because people who listen to this podcast will remember Monty, who I did quite a few episodes with. And whenever I would go around to his house, his dogs would instantly just start sticking their long, because they were greyhounds, long noses straight into my crotch without fail. And it took me out of my comfort zone. I'm going to be honest with you. So there's that. I think the greyhounds themselves, I don't trust them. They're too long and thin.
Right. They are a bit weird, alienishly looking.
Yeah. I can't deal with it. Anyway, I'm going to move off dogs because
otherwise I could complete this whole next 2 hours talking about my dog.
Well, I was going to say, I felt myself settling into kind of a long, dissection of my feelings about dogs. And I don't know that that's what people come here for. Look, I'm going to tell you a little story because it's fairly quick. And then I'll ask you what you've brought me.
Okie dokie.
So,
I'm intrigued.
Actually, you know what? I've got 2 little ones here. I'm going to throw this one away because it's just a bit strange. But Charles Darwin, Charles Darwin, who obviously...
Not personally, but...
No. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I was led to believe that you did, so that's throwing this whole segment out. No. Yeah, obviously, The Origins of Species Man, that was published in 1859, to some waves of enthusiasm and hostility. And obviously, in there is his theory of evolutionary forces. So what people may find surprising is that Darwin had originally intended to become a clergyman when he first attended Cambridge. So that feels like, is that history's greatest 180 turn? I'm not sure. It feels very, it feels like, I'll tell you what it feels like. Because my brother was one of those kids who, whenever you asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, it was always different every time. And I remember on 2 occasions that I asked him, one occasion he wanted to be a park ranger, so someone who gets into nature reserves and looks after animals. And the very next time I asked him, probably 4 months later or so, he wanted to be a butcher. So something happened in there in that 4 months to really 180 his mind. And that's what's happened here with Mr. Darwin, by the sounds of things.
There was, I don't know about this, we'll have to check it, but my brain is saying that he didn't have the money to get into the clergy.
Oh, you had to, all right, so you had to pay your way in.
Yeah, and instead he paid his way onto the HMS blah 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 ship.
Right.
Not intending to go to the Galapagos Islands and all that.
Yeah.
But just by accident found himself looking around and seeing all these things and making pictures. He was a really good artist and he was drawing things and making these connections. He never intended to come up with this whole theory. but so if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have enough cash at the start, he might not have written that, because he wouldn't have got on the boat to see all the kooky animals and stuff and go, bloody hell, what's going on here? I honestly don't know if I'm telling you the truth here, but that's just what my brain is hinting at me.
Well, look, just because I try and fact check myself a little doesn't mean I require it of my guests. So you go hard in whatever direction you like.
And then the ship got lost. It didn't go on its intended route, and it just turned up by accident. in some of the places where he observed the animal life and the plants and things. Was it the HMS Terror? No.
Beagle.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I found that quite astounding. Here's something else I found astounding.
Yes.
And it really kind of requires you to sit and do the maths a little bit.
What? We need a pen and paper.
You don't literally have to do the maths. You can take my word for it. I've crunched the numbers. So, US Civil War.
Okay.
It ended in 1865. But, strangely enough, a very interesting fact about it was ongoing until 2020. Now, Civil War veterans received, for a very long time, a pension from the government, pretty much in perpetuity, and their widows received them as well.
Whoa.
So, weirdly enough, one of those pensions was paid until 2020. Now,
That's crazy.
So, how's that possible?
Huh.
A lady by the name of Helen Viola Jackson.
Good name.
It's a cracking name. I'd be happy with it. Would you feel obliged to play the viola? I suppose you would.
Yeah.
When she was a teenager, it was the 1930s, and she provided care, healthcare mostly, to a nonagerian by the name of James Boland. So in the 1930s, a nonagerian was well and truly alive in Civil War era. He was a Missouri-born Civil War vet who had fought for the Union. And so she looked after him, obviously in his declining years. And he was so grateful that he married her.
Wow. Okay. That wasn't where I thought it was going.
Completely platonically. Like, he wasn't trying to get his creepy 90-year-old freak on. But as she later said, he said that he would leave me his union pension, which was the pension that he received. It was during the Great Depression and times were hard. And he said it might be my only way of leaving the farm. So as in the only kind of money she would earn that would allow her to leave the family farm and go off and have her own life if she wanted to. So that's how 17-year-old Jackson married 93-year-old Brolin in 1936. Whoa. And, she was 17 in 1936 and only died in 2020. So the US government has been paying her an American Civil War pension until the year 2020.
Did you see how much it is even? Does it increase in value according to
living costs?
Yeah.
No.
Because it would be I don't know, shillings or cents or whatever. Did it increase?
Oh yeah. It's in unfortunately it's in Confederate dollars. So no, I don't know that. Maybe I'll find out later and drop it in here as a factoid.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, future Stu? Hello, Stu from the future. Look, I'm not gonna lie, couldn't be bothered looking it up. There we go. We're here with Sam Pett, who I've pulled out of podcast retirement to join us here on Bit Weird, but fair enough, I guess. Sam, did you bring me something weird?
Well, I think it's weird, and I hope you do. Mm-hmm. So these days I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, usually on my way to school. Because
To put you in the right mood to deal with the kids.
exactly. What's better than a bit of murder before going to teach children? But there was one story that I heard that wasn't actually a crime. It was just a mystery.
Mm.
And it stayed with me ever since. So it's the story of the disappearing lightkeepers.
Is this the one they made the film about?
Yes.
Right.
The Vanishing.
Okay. I haven't watched it, so that's the extent of my knowledge. But yeah, right.
Oh, I haven't watched it either, but yes, they did make a movie of it.
Okay.
It just intrigues me what went down on that island. It was off the coast of Scotland.
Well, there's your first problem.
And not being in Scotland.
Yeah. I suppose being off the coast of Scotland is better than being. No, I won't do that. That's awful. Sorry, carry on.
So it was Flannan Isle Lighthouse.
Mm.
And it was manned by 3 people: James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur were the main 3 housekeepers. And as you know, living...
Good Scottish names.
MacArthur, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I imagine living in that kind of conditions must be really stressful. You can't escape each other.
Any idea how
There's nowhere
big?
to go.
Is the island very big, or is it literally just a rock with a lighthouse on it, and you can't go?
It's a big rock.
I'll go outside. I'll walk the dog for the 3rd time today. What do you mean? There's no yard? Oh, crap. All right, we'll get back inside.
Yeah. What happened was on December 15th in 1900, a passing ship noticed that the lighthouse beacon wasn't lit. And they're like, oh, that's not good. But they didn't get to shore until December 20th, which they then reported it to the lighthouse board.
Right.
And said like something gone wrong. And it took until December 26th to get somebody actually out to the island to see what was going on.
Well, sorry, what year is this? I don't know.
1900.
1900, right. So there was no ship to shore kind of telecommunications or anything like that.
I guess not. I'm not very nautical. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I'm very naughty, but not very nautical. Thank you. This is why I've been in podcast retirement.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so they had a relief keeper, and his name was Joseph Moore, and he arrived on the 26th. And when he got to the island, the front gate was closed. And it's like 160 steps up to the actual lighthouse. And when he got to the lighthouse itself, that door was also closed.
Right.
And when he went in, he found like really weird things. So apart from the doors being closed, the beds were unmade.
Right.
Which is unusual because they have quite a strict kind of regime.
Yeah.
Or things. The clock had stopped, but I couldn't find what time the clock had stopped at. And the table had been set for a meal, but nobody had actually sat down to eat. And one chair had been kicked over. And then as he looked around a bit more, he found that like housekeepers have like the oil skins.
Yeah.
On crabbing ships and that kind of thing.
Right.
One set of oil skins was still in place. And it was determined that that oil skin belonged to Donald MacArthur, who was known to be a bit of a bully.
Right.
And a bit like temperamental. So he then looked at the logbook, and the last entry on the logbook was December 15th. and it reported that everyone was praying. MacArthur, the big bully, was crying. Marshall was being just didn't want to talk to anyone.
So hang on, who's writing this? There's three of them. What?
James Ducat was like the head keeper.
Okay.
He kept the logbooks. So they thought, that's interesting. If this behavior is so unusual that you're putting it into the logbook, that's kind of strange. And then the logbook recorded that there was a humongous storm on the island. But there are no other records anywhere of a storm.
Oh.
So these three men have gone missing with no trace. A storm recorded in the log didn't actually seem to happen. And then the what was his name? The relief keeper, Joseph Moore, he went out and kind of had a scout around the island. And only on the west end, he saw like serious damage. Turf had been ripped up. Supplies had been damaged. It all looked really strange. And ever since then, there's been loads of really weird theories about what happened to them, ranging from the very bizarre to the maybe it was that, but the sea serpent
sea serpent
had eaten
kraken.
them.
What about a kraken?
Right. Foreign spies had abducted them.
Oh yeah.
Was it?
Maybe it was the same Chinese sub that picked up Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt.
Who knows? Could be.
I don't think they had subs in 19. Oh, maybe.
Oh,
they might have had prototype subs in 1900.
Yeah. There was also a well-known, kind of like the Loch Ness monster theory. There was a ghost ship that apparently patrolled the area.
Mary Celeste style?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And maybe the ghost ship had taken them.
Okay.
Or going back to the more plausible, they just ran off to live new lives.
Well.
Or they fell to their deaths off the cliffs in a storm that nobody else knows ever happened. And MacArthur killed them, threw the other two off the cliff, and fell down himself.
Is there any indication that the writing of that last entry was any different in style or handwriting to other entries?
That has been slightly questioned as to the plausibility.
Because my first thing would be, if there's doubt over the storm and the only record of the storm is in this diary and then suddenly everyone disappears, would somebody be trying to make it look like potentially that they got washed to sea in a storm as a way to account for sudden disappearances?
Right. This is why you can get yourself down this rabbit hole of what's true, what's not true.
But why? How do we know that MacArthur was a bully? Is it purely from this diary?
No, he was known as being very aggressive. He had also he had to pay a fine of 5 shillings for smashing up some equipment when he was angry one time.
Right.
So that was recorded as that's absolute. We know.
Well, I hadn't heard this story before. My gut feeling is that MacArthur's been set up by, who's the main dude who writes the diary?
James Ducat.
Yeah. He knew everyone thought that MacArthur was a bully, so all suspicion would go on him if they all disappeared. He killed the other 2, went off to live in Tahiti
with the foreign spies.
Well, yeah, I suppose when they drop in, give them a nice coconut drink or whatever. But look, I do love those kind of stories. There's the one, I don't know if there's been a modern equivalent. I keep remembering reading the story of Oak Island in I'm gonna have to look it up. Maybe I'll do it for a bit weird story one day, but maybe there's a modern update to it I'm not aware of, but where they discovered a pit that early settlers had built, but it just kept going down and down and down for so many hundreds of meters that they didn't get to the bottom of it. And, it wasn't just like a trench, it was walled, like there were brackets of wood supporting this hole for a very, very far way down.
Whoa.
Yeah. I need to look into that. I think that might have been a bit weird. In fact, next time we do one, I'll bring you that story. How about
that? Yeah. I need to look that up. That's intrigued me.
Oak Island, I'm fairly sure it's called. And it was, I don't get American geography. It's somewhere in America.
Okay.
Anywho's, that was nice and informative.
Well, it just baffles me, how people can just disappear. No trace.
I know what you're saying, but I also think in the 1900s, before, I think it was probably easy for people to disappear. You know what I mean?
Right. You can't track cell phones. Credit card transactions wouldn't have existed.
Yeah. Like 1900s, I don't understand how, it wasn't just crazy lawlessness everywhere. Who's going to know how they track you? Anyway, that's also another weird, vague comment from me. Thank you. If you've got theories as to what happened to those lighthouse buggers, send it in, or actually follow the Bit Weird socials and then DM me your thoughts there. I'll share them later. All right. Well, perhaps I should move on to the product of the week because people sting for it. People sting for that product of the week.
Yay.
And I'm turning where I love to turn, Amazon.com. And again, this is going back to pets, not me trying to be funny about your name. It's just that this is what came up. It is an inflatable cat unicorn horn. So
what?
There's a packet here. You can get a little unicorn horn to put on your cat's head. Why you would want this or what the cat would feel about it is anyone's guess. Although on the packet here, they assure us, so it's a blue packet. I'll obviously post a photo when this comes out. It's a blue packet. It's called Inflatable Unicorn Horn for Cats. And down the bottom, the cat looking stunned more than anything else to have a weird plastic balloon on its head. And in the bottom right corner, it says, cats love it.
I really don't think they do.
I can't see how they have any evidence for that. The cat on the packet doesn't particularly seem to love it. It's looking into the middle distance like, it's wondering how its life came to this point.
Are there any reviews?
Great question. Let's have a look. Oh, how can there not be any reviews?
Oh, there you go.
How can there not be any reviews? Let's hang on. No, this can't be right. All right, inflatable. Be careful now, Stuart. Inflatable cat unicorn.
Oh my god, you need to delete your search history on this.
Reviews. What do we get? Okay, there's people on YouTube trying to do amusing reviews about it. Leave it to the experts here on Bit Weird. Thank you very much. There's 492 reviews, actually. So that's do you know why there weren't any reviews? Because I was looking at Amazon.com.au. So no one in Australia is wanting this product. But if I go over to the American one, there's plenty of people with plenty to say. Let's get this open here. All right. Look, it's got 60% 5-star rating. So that's
What?
it's an average of 4.1 out of 5. So people bloody love it. I don't know if
Oh,
cats love it, but people love it. That's what should be on the packet.
yeah. How to
Um,
demoralize that.
all right. So right up the top here, we've got a 3-star review from Missy Bissy, who says, your cat will hate you forever. Do you care? If not, buy this. Cats love it,
What?
she says. That almost sounds like a challenge, and we are always up for a challenge. I have 2 cats. I don't like them very much, but the girl child likes them. They have names, but I just call them Grey and Orange. Orange has long hair. Why do we care about this, Missy Bissy? Doesn't matter how long the orange cat's hair is.
She is so ambivalent about the cats.
Oh, look. I was going to say, I think Missy Bissy likes the sound of her own voice, but I think she likes the sound of her own keyboard clacking. Okay. I've just seen the next one, the next review. The inflatable unicorn horn for cats changed my life. Now, that's a
I have to interrupt. Sorry. I have to interrupt because I can see your face right now, and I cannot wait to hear what you're about to say.
If that was a clickbait heading, how could you resist opening that article? The inflatable unicorn horn for cats changed my life. I've been seeing my girlfriend for quite some time now, and until a week back, I had been extremely nervous about asking her to marry me. You see, she comes from a very strict newer Bionist upbringing. Newer Bionist? Okay.
Never heard.
And marrying me, in brackets, a Jew, is considered to be quite taboo among her family, particularly her parents. So before I could ask for her hand, I had to woo them. Initially, I thought to procure some afterbirth for them as a sign of good faith. Ew, what am I doing? Why am I reading this? Their religion dictates that it's important to bury afterbirth so that Satan does not use it. Okay, all right, that's a mad person trying to be amusing. I don't know that has a lot to do with an inflatable unicorn horn. Maybe it does later on, but you know what? I'm not what. I don't want to go through the trouble of getting to it.
I'm going to guess that he put the ring on the horn and then presented the cat with the horn on its head with the ring as a proposal.
Maybe. I'm going down to the 1. I'm going down to the 1 stars. Useless piece of garbage. Cheaply made piece of crap. Could barely inflate it due to not being able to get the valve closed to keep the tiny amount of air in it. I tried to put it on my cat. The elastic is either supposed to go around the ears, in which case it won't stay on, or it's supposed to go around the neck, in which case I would probably strangle my cat. The cat would probably appreciate it if you're the sort of person who wants to put a unicorn horn on it. Funny idea, hilarious photos, but do not waste your money, in caps.
I was going to ask, how much is it?
It's $14.95, but the last line of this review is, serves me right for trying to humiliate my cat. And I think that's the most sensible thing I've read so far about this. $14.95 for what is essentially a small inflatable tube that will annoy your cat.
Awesome.
Can you imagine being the sort of person who invites some friends over and says, I got something funny to show you. You ready? And pulls out a unicorn horn to put on the cat. Your friends would think that you're the fucking biggest munter in the world, surely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like doing that whole dressing up animals in human clothes. Like, I would never put, no, I didn't do it. Tony did. Tony put a hat on the cat. That was more difficult to say than it should have been.
I'm going to use that for vocal warm-ups before the next episode. Tony put a hat on the cat. Tony put the hat on the cat.
I'll share the picture when this episode goes down. But
and the cat did what?
Looked really cute.
But did it look angry?
No.
Oh,
this is very unusual for him.
Well, there you go. There might be something in the hat area that Amazon should look at.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting to the stage where I'm going to have to wrap this up and send a parting oddity your way. Do you mind if I send you a parting oddity?
Please do. Go for it.
And I found this a little hard to believe. Sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins can. How about that for a weird-ass fact?
I can totally believe that. Because they don't do anything.
Well, yeah, that's actually it. Pretty much because they're so slow and lazy, they can slow their heartbeat down to a point where they can only need to breathe once every 40 minutes, it says here. Whereas a dolphin needs at least one breath every 10 minutes.
Wow. I need to be more sloth.
I think there's a lesson in that for all of us, really. Sloth it up.
I don't want to human today. I'm just going to sloth.
Yeah. Well, look, I think, workplaces should factor into their leave scheme 2 sloth days a year, where the staff get to choose a day where they stay at home and try and slow their breathing down to a point where their heart rate virtually stops and get some sort of relaxation going that way.
I am down for that. Absolutely.
Sam, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And sharing weirdness, of course. I'm going to go watch the Lighthouse movie. Will you podcast again, or are you going back into your podcast host retirement home?
Well, I did, because he's a good friend of yours, I will just drop this in. I did do Chattering classes not that much long ago with Matty.
Wow, Matt Barry.
Yeah, that's the one.
Guest of this very show.
Exactly, yes. But just finding the time and I do want to, but I just don't know what format to do.
Reading Google reviews of things that people try and put on cats' heads. Surely that's it.
Do it with my sexy English accent and
why not?
It could become the new fall asleep to Sam's voice.
You're just there going, my cat was disgusted.
Get the ASMR on it?
Potentially, but I wouldn't recommend mixing your sounds of your demon cat into the soundscape at all, if that's what you're aiming to do.
Oh no, that would be so cool. Just lull people into that sense they're just about to sleep, and then get Cracker going.
Yes.
Oh, actually, I really want to do that now.
Why not? People don't deserve good night's sleeps.
Right.
All right. Well, Sam, thank you.
Follow us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Thanks for listening, friends. This is an Angry Chimp podcast.